some of that. Okay, next up we have zooming in from where?
Amsterdam.
Amsterdam. We have Commander Caecilia van Peski, Commander of the Royal Netherlands Navy, Netherlands Ministry of Defense. She's also involved with, she's Chief of Task Force Logistics, EU Common Security and Defense Policy. Okay. Commander van Peski.
Oh, dear community at Juniata College and abroad, thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much for having me live in Huntingdon, which you did everything to make that possible. And then the plane broke down. The United Airlines plane broke down, as the organizers know. And that happened on Friday. And ever since, I'm trying to reach you. And I will still be trying to reach you. I'm booked for a flight tomorrow now. I mean, we'll be missing the symposium, but I'm hoping to still have a few days in Huntingdon to meet with you personally, because we have all been looking forward very much to that. So excuse me, we all tried. We were just not able to beat a broken airplane. But bringing me, in a way, that broken airplane brought me new insights as well. And I was speaking to the bus driver who shuttled me to my overnight stay here in Amsterdam, and he said, "This whole war," because he asked me, where are you flying? Where are you going? It's a symposium on the war in Ukraine. He said, "This whole war is caused by the Americans, and they're all trying to let us think that it is the Russians." So this just brings me to a topic which I do find important in this speech as well. Our whole world is in instability. Like, we are suffering from instability, not only in Russia, not only in Ukraine, not only in Europe, but in the whole world. So that's not a very happy message. And you see the, I'm not going to say that bus driver was right or wrong. I do think he tried to make sense of what he was seeing and hearing. And we do see that there's a lot of different opinions on what is happening at the moment. Thank you, Caitlin, for putting on my slides. It's going to be a bit difficult for me to say, like, let's switch to slide this or that. I'm just going to use these 15 minutes. Thank you for giving them to me. And feel free to go a bit through the slides, perhaps especially to those on EU and NATO viewpoints eventually, because then people can just watch the slides if they're interested. And then the verbal comments I can give Monday and Tuesday, when I hope to meet you all at the Bakery Institute and in the cafeteria, etc. We'll run into each other. So last time when I was at visiting Juniata College, I was there because I was invited to come as a fellow. I wasn't a commander in the Navy yet. That happened afterwards. I was a simple reservist in the armed forces. But I'm seeing specifically in this very masculine war that we're seeing now, and I'm using one of the different perspectives that you can take to look at this war, the geopolitical perspective, the geostrategic perspective, the political one, the historical one, the economical one, the social one, the one on human security, but definitely also the one on gender. And what we're seeing is that we're looking at a very masculine war, not a war of men, but of masculine values. The only soldiers we're seeing are men. The only politicians who are meddling in the story are men. Erdogan in Turkey, Putin in Moscow, Biden in the US, bigger players, the male president, the prime minister or chancellor of Germany. In a way, we can miss Angela Merkel, who was the female one before him, and she spoke Russian and she had contact with Putin, because they both spoke Russian and had contact earlier in their lives as well, when Putin was working in Germany. Remember, he was a KGB spy officer in Dresden in his early career. So there was a connection with Germany, and I think quite many years we've been able to use this connection to better the situation that we were almost running towards. And we're lacking such seasoned politicians, like very seasoned politicians, with also the ability to connect to Russia. The last one who still was, it was Macron in France from Europe. And even that connection has now been broken. He's not, as far as we know, he's not visiting Putin anymore. That brings us also to the topic of dialogue. Dialogue is so important. And I was asked to speak about the connection with the conflict and then the European continent, right? And for all our continents, it's important to have good dialogue with the Russian Federation. The US specifically hasn't had in the past, but in Europe we have to, because Russia is our neighbor. And one of the effects of this conflict now is all those ties of dialogue are being broken, where those ties is what we need for the future, because there will be a future again after the conflict in Ukraine. And unfortunately, my very bleak prediction is that we will have decades and decades and generations to come to terms again to what has happened, this horrible traumatic event to everybody, war being back in Europe. So these dialogue ties have been broken. We used to have a program, I'm sure many students have heard of it as well. It was called Erasmus Mundus, and then European students and also Russian students could engage in academic exchange. That has stopped after February this year. No Russian students are invited anymore to come and study in Europe. Nobody, of course, from Europe is going on vacation or holidays or like city trip to Russia. It was already a low number. You wouldn't find so very many people who had been, like if you would ask in the street, ordinary public, have you ever gone to Moscow for a city trip? It would be hard to find these people, but now, of course, nobody is going. There's not even flights. There's not even buses. The only way now to go to Russia is to go to Istanbul and take a Turkish Airlines flight to Russia. Of course, you can still go from China. And then there's a bus line from Helsinki to Moscow, St. Petersburg or Moscow. That's the only option you're having. So it's very, very limited. Cultural exchange has stopped. Russian artists who were working in the Netherlands, now speaking for my own country, for example, painters and dancers in the ballet, they've all been turned back unless they've asked for political asylum. Academic programs also in the faculty exchange have stopped. There was a fear for stealing of important information, for example, from our technological field, and that's why academics have been dismissed from research programs and sent back to Russia. So this is affecting the connection between the Russian Federation and Europe at every stage. And I was now only mentioning aspects that we will also need for the future, right? But the more dangerous one for the present time, of course, are what is named in military terms hybrid warfare. All these aspects of making societies unstable that are anything besides open warfare, like shooting at each other or dropping bombs. Everything else we are seeing is happening at the moment. Our politics, European national politics are being influenced by external parties, not only Russian Federation, of course, but external parties. That's what I'm mentioning it. Computer systems have been hacked and shut down for a few hours or even sometimes for like 2 or 3 days. It has happened to our banking system, and it has also happened to our railroad system in the Netherlands. So we've had a day that you couldn't use the trains because the train system, the computer behind it was down. These events have far-fetching influence on the people, not only because there were people that, well, you can imagine that, right, couldn't go to the hospital because the train wasn't riding or had to cancel the wedding, but more importantly, people lose a feeling of trust in their own society. And if people lose trust in their own society and their politics, but also in all the services that the society provides, there's no money coming from the ATM, and they can't take the train. This has devastating effects on the stability of these nations. I'm going a bit towards a closing statement. Time is short. I hope to speak further with you. As you can imagine, of also for those who have been in Europe recently, really basically on every street corner you see Ukrainian refugees. It's women and children. They're participating in public life, which is a good thing, right? They're trying to integrate. My personal belief is that many of them will stay, because it will take many, many years, even before, it will take time before we can start thinking of rebuilding Ukraine. And if so, it takes years before Ukraine is rebuilt. And so we have to think of a way how to integrate Ukrainian citizens in our societies. And sorry that I don't have a more positive talk. There's positive sides as well, but what I think the difficulty will be the coming winter, with energy supplies going really, really low, especially now also Nord Stream pipeline has been damaged. So what will the response of European citizens be towards this? And what will the Ukrainian Russian troops, what will they be doing? Will there be in a hibernation state, or will they just prepare for the final offense in the spring? So it's going to be hard and cold winter for many. Thank you very much. I'm eager to hear the rest of the symposium and very ready to engage with you today, and especially on Monday and Tuesday. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much too. Stick around, because I'm sure there are going to be plenty of questions and comments.